Good morning, everyone. My name is Alex and I'm a Cyber Protect and Prevent Officer for Bedfordshire Police. If you see me darting my eyes this way, it's because I've got Zoom on my phone and then the presentation up on my laptop. So just a quick overview of what I do. As I said, I'm Protect and Prevent. So Protect element, I deal with any action fraud reports across the whole of Bedfordshire. Usually that would be myself and my colleague Michael, but he is leaving on the 1st of November, so it will just be me. Action fraud can be, as I said, anyone across Bedfordshire that's fallen victim to a scam or elements of fraud. We will look into them and make sure we contact every single victim. We receive vulnerable person SARS, so they'll be from people's banks, where the banks have raised concern about how money may have gone in, come out, large amounts of funds that may have just appeared in their account all get sent to us, and we'll usually do a home visit, have a conversation, see what's kind of going on and whether it needs any further investigation. We deliver Protect messaging and training, so that can be, as we do to businesses today, schools, communities. We do a lot of work in kind of retirement homes, going and speaking to elderly people, making sure that they're protecting themselves against any online scams. We work in partnership with the ECRC, so the Eastern Cyber Resilience Centre, but I won't talk too much about that as we've got Paul on the call who will explain later. We sponsor for CISP, which is a cyber security information sharing partnership, so joint industry and government knowledge initiative, and probably the most, what's the word, that the businesses will be interested in. We do a Lego decisions and disruptions role-playing game. So it literally, as it sounds, we have a Lego kit. We go and visit different businesses and it's an interactive game. So everyone splits off into different tables, gets quite competitive. Each table gets a budget for the year. I think it runs over 4 years in the game, and you make different decisions as to how you're going to protect your business, and at the end of each round there will be an outcome of what your decisions and how they had an impact on your business. Some people go bust in the first year, and there is a way that you can play the game where you have zero loss and that is the perfect game. We find that that's really beneficial for businesses because it kind of opens their eyes to some things that they may not have thought of, and it's not just a boring presentation or anything like that. It's really interactive, gets people a bit competitive, and we find that it's quite successful. So that's kind of it from me. Sam, if you're ready for your intro.
Thanks, Alex. Yeah, just quickly slotted those slides in there. So thank you, everyone, and good morning to you. So my name is Sam, and I'm the Partnerships and Events Manager at the Growth Hub. And some of you may already know us. Some of you may have attended the cyber event that we ran with Alex and Michael earlier in the year. And as I say, we partner with lots and lots of different sort of intermediaries and other business support services across the South East Midlands to provide businesses with free business support. And one of those businesses, I'm just going to move my slides on. Here we go. So you can see from here, we've got a real stacked agenda this morning, and we've brought together various different people across the sort of cyber prevent and protect arena to bring you hopefully what will be a valuable session in protecting your business from cyber threats. So without further ado, I'm actually going to hand back over to Alex because she's going to talk a little bit more about how you can protect yourself and your organisation from cybercrime.
Cool. So the next slide after that one, Sam, is kind of my intro, which I've just kind of covered. Just amongst that, the prevent element to the role that I do, we work with young people who tend to be on the cusp of committing cybercrime. We intervene at a point before they've kind of gone too far and hopefully work with them to steer them away from actually committing any online crimes. So I'm going to jump straight into the next slide, please, which just covers a few examples of the different types of fraud that we receive and that we kind of look into. So on the right hand side, you've got a list there, vehicle fraud, insurance fraud, loan fraud, pyramid or Ponzi schemes, romance, mandate, etc. On the left-hand side, that's just a snippet of an ancient action fraud report that we've received. Again, so we receive between 80 to 120 of those every Wednesday, just across Bedfordshire, and we'll either send them a protect email, we will refer them to serious fraud. So a lot of the mandate frauds that we receive, obviously depending on kind of the price of what they've paid out, if they have, how much they've lost, will depend on whether it gets investigated. When it comes to cyber and fraud, unfortunately, it sits at the bottom of the pile. So across Bedfordshire, the serious fraud team will only investigate anything that is above £5,000. Anything underneath that usually will be working with the banks, and a case of protecting them from hopefully it not happening again. But as I said, unfortunately, it does sit at the bottom of the pile when there's so many other crimes that are committed. So if we could just go on to the next slide, please. This specifically is a mandate fraud that we dealt with. It was last year, and this came through on an action fraud report. So this is the only information that we received. So I'm planning on having a replacement window doors at my business, email communication with DS Design, and a build a friend, Dave, who has been giving me advice. So what happened was we went to visit them, and the whole of the front of their building is humongous glass doors. And I think it was costing her around £15,000 to have them replaced. She had been working with a company for a few months, working on quotes, having people kind of come round and do some of the work, start it. The manager of the company, the victims, they went on holiday. When they returned, they'd received an email into their inbox that a co-worker was managing while they're away. Received an email, and don't quote me, but it was, we've had a change in our bank details. Can you please send the rest of the money over to this account? Here's all the details. Sorry about the mess, blah, blah, blah. The lady that was in charge of the inbox didn't really think anything of it, because what the fraudster had done was ultimately copied their email address, but there was one letter that was different. So with that, what happens is you can go online and you can buy new email addresses, you can create new email addresses, and you can completely impersonate, obviously, the company that they thought they were dealing with. So the lady sent the money over, and by this point, they'd already paid a deposit to the actual business, and it was the remaining 10,000 there or thereabouts. When we got contacted with regards to it, we went through the email, showed the location of where the suspect was, and they were abroad, where most of them tend to be. They do tend to be Lagos, Nigeria, we get a lot from, and also over in India. Unfortunately, not a success story with this incident. They never got their money back. It couldn't be investigated any further because of the location of the suspects, amongst many other things. But I wanted to show this as an example of how simple it can be. And the lady that sent the money said she felt really silly, she felt embarrassed, but she was busy, the manager was off, she didn't think anything of it. So it's really, really important to, whenever anyone's requesting any money from a company, especially, is to take that time to really look into it, to query it. You can also contact the bank that they're linked to, and they'll be able to say to you, that there is that change or not. Another thing with this is, because the money, this is what the bank advised to us, the money instantly went into this other account that they'd given the details to. They removed it straight away, and they moved it into Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, and their digital wallets that are super hard to trace. And as I said, this lady unfortunately didn't get her money back. But I wanted to just show you that as a kind of live example of one that happened. We also receive a lot where a colleague will be emailed and they'll be asked to buy gift cards, and they'll impersonate the kind of CEO or the director of the company, again, by copying email addresses with maybe a different number or a hyphen in there or things like that. So it's just really important to check those. Next slide, please. So Another really prominent scam that we're seeing at the minute, which I'm sure most people have probably heard about, is WhatsApp scam. So I thought it was important to include this in this presentation because they're now starting to target businesses. It started off with, just as you'll see from this example, it was just a lady who believed her son was messaging her. This usually starts by social engineering. So the suspect would have looked on Facebook, seen a contact number on there, probably been able to get a few details, and all it takes is a new number to then contact someone. And we honestly, probably when they first started coming about, we were receiving about 1 to 2 a week, and we're now probably over 10 a week. Some people don't lose any money. Luckily, this lady clocked on that it was a scam before sending any money, but not everyone is that lucky. And again, it's a case of, it sounds really simple, but it's double checking everything. It's stopping and thinking, is this right? What can I do to check it, rather than acting on impulse? And we find that a lot of the losses that companies have is based on impulse, because everyone's busy, everyone's got stuff that they need to do, and they just act fast. And it comes to that old question of, is prevention better than the cure? And the answer is always yes, because, you know, we can put a lot of things in place, which I know Francis is going to go over, to stop you from getting to that point, and how to protect yourself. The aftermath, as I said, is really, really difficult, because once the money's gone, in a sense, it's gone. So we rely a lot on people's banks and other elements. Yeah, you're right, Francis. Prevention is the only cure. But yeah, it's a lot harder to do the work afterwards, because essentially the money's kind of already gone. And we pose the question to our victims and say, you know, we can attempt to try and find the suspect and get him convicted, or we can try and get your money back. And 9 out of 10 people will always want to try and get some money back. Sometimes it is successful, we do manage to do it, but the unfortunate thing is a lot of the time it's not. And, you know, some people have lost their homes, some companies have had to close their businesses because of little mistakes that are made, which can 100% be prevented. I think that's it for me. I'm trying to keep in time, so I will stop talking.
Okay, thanks very much, Alex. So my name's Dave Brown. I'm working fraud team at Metro Bank. So what we're going to look at today is the types of scams that we see. As Alex mentioned, CEO fraud and mandate fraud, and also how fraudsters actually get information from people to actually undertake fraud. So I'm sorry, Sam, there's quite a few clicks as I go through each point, unfortunately, so apologies. Oh, brilliant. So just a bit of an overview on scams. So an authorized push payment, or APP as we call them, is simply a customer instruction to make a payment from their account to another account. Scams involving APPs occur when customers are tricked into authorizing a payment to an account that they believe belongs to a legitimate payee, but is in fact controlled by the scammer. So you have two main types of APPs, malicious payee or malicious redirection. So malicious payees include purchase, investment, romance, and advance fee scams. So an example of those would be, for example, on Facebook Marketplace, someone puts up some football tickets for sale, the person sends the money, and as soon as they send the money, they're cut off all communication between the seller and the purchaser. Investment ones are where obviously people go online looking for better rates of investment, and normally the interest rates are a lot higher than offered traditionally. And we've seen a number of them where people have invested, they get a small return, or they get all their money back, and then they invest again, and that's when they don't get their money back. So it's almost like the fraudster using somebody else's money to pay them back just so they can get more money going forward. Romance scams were huge during COVID, unfortunately, because a lot of people, obviously everyone was at home. And romance scams can go on absolutely for years, where people are speaking to someone that they believe is genuine when in fact they aren't. And the crux of it comes at the end when they actually ask them to send money over to them. And as soon as they send the money, they either continue asking for more, or again, all contact is actually stopped. An advanced fee scam is where a customer would, for example, might want to move into a flat, pay a landlord, rent up front, comes to move in day, there's already somebody in the property. So they've sent money for something in advance, but again, don't get the actual goods or services that what they expected. Malicious redirections. So you've got impersonation that we just saw from Alex there, where the current one, as Alex mentioned, was impersonating a family member to get you to send money over. Safe account is quite a big one as well, where fraudsters will contact customers directly and ask them to transfer their money into a safe account, so that because their current account is at risk. And a lot of people do fall for it, because quite often they do set up the accounts within the same bank, but they say they've had to put it in a different name to protect the money. And CEO fraud and invoice mandate fraud, I'm going to go through in a bit more detail straight after this. Can we go to the next slide, please, Sam? So I just want to give, before I go into those two, a brief overview of a scam case investigation journey within the bank. So once a victim scam case is received, each case will follow the same journey through the investigation by the team. We report the case directly to the beneficiary bank as soon as the case comes in order to chase funds with the other bank. And this is done by a bank-to-bank system that most banks are on, and we just literally put it into the system and it goes directly to the receiving bank. Some of the smaller banks aren't on this system, so we have to go via email. Once we've chased funds, we speak directly to the customer to ascertain the full details of the case, what's happened, how they've come to actually send the money, because this will aid our investigation. And it also, we do a liability assessment on the customer. So has the customer done their due diligence before they sent the payment, or have they just done it on a whim? So obviously, the more due diligence the customer's done, the greater the chance there is of them getting a refund. We also complete a liability assessment on ourselves and the receiving bank. And this ensures that relevant warnings have been given to the customer before they send the payment. So if it's, for example, face-to-face, have we asked what the payment's for? Do they know the person they're sending it to? We get as much information about how we've acted as a bank and how the receiving bank has acted as well during that. So within 48 hours of receiving all the liability assessments from the customer, our own liability and the beneficiary bank, a decision will be made whether a refund should be processed or not to the customer. And each case is individual, so we can't go a blanket. That's a purchase scam, so we will refund. Each case is always looked at on an individual basis. We obviously contact the customer to give them details of the investigation and whether it will be declined or whether a refund decision has been reached. One of the key things that we do as well is during the investigation, either in the first call or in the last call when we give the outcome decision, we always give aftercare to the customer, telling them about what type of scams, what to look out for, and how they can protect themselves going forward so they don't become a victim in the future. Because we have seen a number of customers that have been repeat victims, unfortunately, because obviously once the fraudsters have got their information, they might believe they're a soft touch and decide to keep trying to scam them going forwards. Can we have the next slide, please, Sam? So invoice and mandate redirection is obviously where a criminal impersonates a supplier and deceives the customer into making a payment to the suppliers, genuine invoice of the supplier's invoices to a third-party account. Some of the key ways that we've seen to protect yourself is education amongst your colleagues. Make sure they know your procedures for checking the payments, and especially new payments. You know, if it's someone you haven't dealt with before, have you really looked into the company? Have a set limit on how much you send before you confirm that amount to the customer you're paying. So it could be £2,000. Any payment over that, confirm the payment with them, but do it at different means than the actual payment request come through. So if it came through via email, give them a call, because then obviously the fraudster's not involved if they are in the email chain. have a look at the invoices that you get. Are they different to what's previously used? Because quite often we've seen where invoices have got typologies on them, they've got spelling mistakes and basic grammar issues. If you are dealing with new customers, use search engines such as Google and Bing to get background on the customers and find out exactly who you're going to be talking to. But once you have made the payment, contact the supplier as quickly as you can to confirm the payment has been made, to ensure that you have sent it to the right person. Because if they haven't received it, it could be a scam, and then you'll need to contact your bank as soon as you possibly can. And obviously ensure your antivirus is up to date, because fraudsters do put some viruses within emails, and if you open the emails, it could be an issue going forward for you. Okay, just next slide, please. So CEO fraud, as Alex sort of mentioned earlier, is where cyber criminals impersonate the CEO, requesting for the money to be transferred. Employees believe the request to be genuine, as the email or SMS sent would display as if it come from the CEO. We actually had one of these within our own organisation a few years ago. Luckily, it was stopped. And the only reason it was stopped is we were a bit smaller then, and everyone knew the CEO very well. And the language on the email was completely different than he would use. And we spotted that by checking the sender's email address. It was, it come from a normal Metro Bank domain. However, the O of Metro Bank had been changed to a 0. And that's how it got the email through. So always check the sending email address, that it's the same as every single one that you've received previously. It could have a very, very small difference, even like just a full stop in there. New payment requests by email or SMS should also require verbal confirmation with your colleague to ensure that, again, they have made the request. It's also possible you could purchase domain names that are variations of your organisation's name that might be very close to yours, in order to stop people using these domains to try and get you to send payments. And one of the authorizations we use within the bank is a 2-step authorization for payments. So the payment request comes through, and we can only send the payment once we've done a direct callback via phone. So we don't go back on email. We always just go via telephone. Okay, so just go to the next slide, please. I just want to go through now the types of social engineering that fraudsters use in order to get information from customers to actually start defrauding them. And it's not necessarily just scams. This can be unauthorized payment fraud as well. So the first one we've got is phishing, which is obviously where they use fake internet banking websites or send emails claiming to be from a company or from the bank. I'm sure you've all received the ones from HMRC saying you're going to get a tax rebate. All you've got to do is fill in your details. You fill in your details on the email, finally ask for your card details. Within minutes, your account's been absolutely rinsed, because they've got your card details, your full name and address, they've asked for the numbers on the back of the card, etc. Smishing is where an SMS is sent requesting the customer to click a link or call a number that's controlled by the fraudster. And the fraudster then socially engineers the customer to get their security login credentials, all the card details again. I mean, I received one at 25 to 2 this morning on my phone saying that the post office tried to deliver my parcel at that time and they couldn't. I had to pay £1.20 to get the parcel delivered. So again, that's they literally flood everywhere with these smishing texts, hoping just 1 or 2 people will reply to them. The biggest one we're seeing at the moment for unauthorized fraud is phishing, sorry. And that's when a fraudster calls the customer directly to get the information. And they normally would pose as a representative of a major company. The ones we're seeing are the fraudsters claim to be from Microsoft or from your internet provider. And they say there's a problem with your router or your PC. And they need access to go on and actually clear this for you. Once they've got access to your PC, they will download something like AnyDesk, and they will keep the customer on the phone. For, sometimes we've had customers on the phone for in excess of 6 hours to the fraudster, and they literally probing them for information. They get them to log into their bank account. They then have control of the account as well, and they will transfer money into it as if it's a refund, and then get the customer to send the money out saying they've refunded them too much for their inconvenience. And that's a very big one. And unfortunately, it seems to be a lot of the victims are elderly or vulnerable customers that we have that aren't too tech savvy, and unfortunately believe what they're being told by the fraudsters. But all of these types of social engineering are brought together by spoofing. And this is where the fraudster mimics the email address, phone number, or SMS to trick the customer into believing it has come from a recognised organisation. This can be quite hard for customers to spot, because sometimes the fraudsters manage to get the text messages within a chain that you've already had with the bank or the organisation. And always phone back. If you get a text with a phone number on it, always phone back the number on your card, and not what the number that the fraudster are actually trying to get you to contact them on. So that's just a brief overview of the types of fraud that we're certainly seeing at the moment within Metro Bank. If anyone's got any questions at all. But one thing I will say is Hazel Simpson, our local director from our Luton store, is actually on the call as well. And Hazel will put her contact details into the chat a bit later on. And if you do have any concerns or queries, please don't hesitate to speak to Hazel, and she'll be able to help you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Dave. That's brilliant, and some really interesting information there that you covered. If anyone does have any questions that come up in the meantime while we carry on, please feel free to put them in the chat, which I'll keep an eye on, and we have set aside some time at the end for any more questions. So yeah, don't feel like you've missed your chance. But for now, I'm going to hand over to Francis.
Thank you very much. Can I be made co-host so I can share my screen, please?
Yes, just one moment. There you go. It should be.
Lovely. Let's have a look.
You need me to stop sharing, won't you, Francis?
Yeah. I'll do when I'm done. Okay.
There you go.
Hold on a second. Okay. Can you see everything on the screen now?
Yes, thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, so I've got 15 minutes, correct? And you know I could talk about this for hours and hours and hours. Thank you very much for the opportunity, first of all. I counted the other day. This is my 171st talk on cybersecurity since the start of COVID, starting anything between 5 minutes to 4 hours with a 5-minute stop. So I do like to talk about the subject. I'm sure everybody can see behind me my mission, and my mission is to educate and protect at least 1 million people from hackers and scammers by 2023. And you've already heard some very interesting and thought-provoking content this morning. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you ways that you can, if you take this to heart and implement it by the time you go to bed this evening, you will be infinitely more secure than you were when you woke up this morning. And I always talk about the 5 pillars. The 5 pillars are computer security, and I'm not talking about Norton, McAfee, ESET, Webroot, because unfortunately the problem with those technologies is that they can only detect known threats. They cannot detect unknown threats. They also don't include a ransom guarantee, and you have to ask yourself why. So first of all, computer security. Second of all, password security. Why? I'll explain in a minute. Email security. It was interesting, it was mentioned just now that obviously a lot of spoofing attacks are coming by email. If you looked at the beginning of the year, something like 91% of attacks are coming by email. That figure has now gone up to 94%. And not only are they using email, they're obviously using social media and everything else to get to your accounts in the first place, but most of the attacks coming by email. And I've got a big issue with all the big providers, because they are very good at providing email. They're not very good at providing email security. So one of the things that I always recommend to people is please go and get external email security provider. Do not rely on your normal email solution to do your security for you. And I think that it's unfair of any business owner to make a staff member responsible for deciding whether this email sitting in their inbox now is a criminal attack on the business or not. The fourth one for us is about, backup and recovery, because should you be in a position where they've come in and they've deleted all your data or held it to ransom, and this is both in the cloud or local, you need to be able to recover. And then the fifth pillar for me is all about awareness training. So for instance, we send out security tips once a week to all our subscribers, just to constantly keep, tips and ideas in front of mind. But bearing in mind that I've only got 15 or now down to 12 minutes, I really wanted to focus on just one topic today, and that is password security. The big thing that we see dealing with so many people is the lack of using a password manager. And I want to share with you a few things of how you can really, if you just focus on that one thing and get your password sorted out, immediately you are going to get a much better hold on what's out there about you. People say, well, I use the same password for everything. I'm like, only Saturday we dealt with a case with PayPal. I don't know if anybody on the call here knows this. On Saturday, one of my colleagues got an email through from PayPal saying that there's been a £600 transaction on the PayPal account, and he needs to phone this number to check whether this transaction is fraudulent. Now, we did forensic analysis on this email, only to find that that email actually came from PayPal servers. Not only did we do that, in the afternoon, we decided to phone PayPal on Saturday, and guess what? They agreed that yes, that site was compromised, where they send out invoices from PayPal, and that people should obviously take care. But they didn't take the site down, which I still don't understand. But anyway, the stuff is all relating back to passwords. Why? Because once they can get into your systems, they can look at your entire life, and this is how all these fraud processes start. And they start by not necessarily you losing your password, but of course PayPal losing your password, or what's this, the other one the other day is not Fitbit, the other one, Garmin. So Garmin lost thousands of passwords, and now what the hackers do is they use bots, and they take that password, so your email address and your passwords, and they try it against all your accounts that you've ever had, and that's how they get in. And this is why people say to me, but I really struggle to remember all my passwords. And I said to them, you know what, you don't need to remember any passwords. You only need to remember one password, and that's your sentence to get into your password manager in the first place. And then they said, oh no, but for us, I don't need to do that. I'm using Chrome. All my stuff is saved in Chrome. And I say, really? Let me show you how long it takes a hacker to extract every single password that sits in your Chrome browser. And I'm going to show you, because I thought I'll just quickly record a video just to show everybody how it's done. So just put thumbs up. Can somebody just show a thumbs up if they can hear the video okay?
I don't think we can, Francis. I can't anyway.
No? Okay, I'll talk you through the process. What you can see there is, if you go to settings, you go to autofill, you can do that right now. If you're on your own computer, you can see all your existing passwords that you've ever saved inside your Chrome browser. So the way you do this is you simply go to a website. I'll show you in a minute what it looks like. There's a website called nersoft.net, and you download a piece of software called Chrome Pass. When you run this piece of software, which takes about a second, you've got to first extract it. You will see within 1 second, and I'm not joking, within 1 second, you can extract every single password that has ever been saved in your password, in your Chrome browser. So hopefully, by showing you that example, you can now see why it's so important never ever to store your passwords inside Chrome, because what will happen is I'll send you one email as a hacker. You'll click on one link, and now we've installed what we call a keylogger on your computer, which means the very next time when you go and make coffee or when you go and do something and look after the kids, I'll extract all your, especially all the passwords sitting on your PC or Mac. So first bit of advice, please, please, please never, ever, ever install save your passwords on your, when it pops up and say, yeah, please save my password. Rather use a password manager, which I'm going to explain to you in a minute. The other thing, just coming back to where data is saved or where the hackers get your passwords from, we talk a lot about the dark web. Now, the dark web is where, you know, you can buy AK-47s, you can buy child porn, you can buy any drug of choice, and you can have it delivered to your house this afternoon. And now you see the reason why it's not a good idea if your data also ends up on the dark web. And the good password managers also includes a feature called Breach Watch. Now, what Breach Watch does, it monitors the dark web, and then the moment there's any of your passwords have been compromised, it will say, listen, your PayPal account or your LinkedIn account or your Twitter account has been compromised, which means you can go in and then go and change the password. And again, all the good password managers will generate, and this is my yardstick today, will generate at least a 20-digit random password, which on average takes about 3 sextillion years to crack. So I'm sorry to tell everybody on the call today, you're all going to be dead by then. So the hackers can crack on as long as they like. They won't be able to get your password unless, of course, it's compromised for somebody else. The other thing which I think is so important about password managers is that you can store your multi-factor authentication code. And like Metro Bank has mentioned earlier, you know, the banks have implemented 2FA or multi-factor or two-factor authentication years ago. Why aren't we doing the same for all our other accounts? You know, so if you start using a good password manager, you can get that code stored inside your password manager, which only repeats itself once per lifetime every 30 seconds. So you could then use it. So that's why, if you think about passwords, by using a two-factor authentication code, you've just introduced a third layer of security. You've got your username, your password, and your multi-factor authentication code, which means that even if they did get your username or password, they still can't get your multi-factor authentication code until they hopefully, or not hopefully, sit next to you and force you to give you that information. Now, let me show you some other brilliant sites. The first one, you can still see my screen okay, correct? Just checking.
Yes.
Oh, brilliant. The first site that we always show to people is haveibeenpawned.com. Why? Because if you were to type in your email address, and I'll use one that I've used, that I still use, that's about 12 years old. If I type this one in, you will see that I've had 11 breaches. Now, like I said earlier, it's not necessarily my fault, but it's my fault if I use the same password more than once, and now this password is for sale on the dark web. So if I go down, look at this, Anti-Public, Apollo, City Day, Collection, Cove. Some of these people I've never even heard about. But the point is, the moment I know that there's a breach of an account, I can then take action. Here's another great feature that they built in recently. I can go on to, this is a free tool, so by the way, you can go in and put in your email address, and I recommend please do the same with your uncle, your auntie, your sister, your brother, every person that's in the business. Ask them to put their email address in, and also their personal ones. Click I'm not a robot and click on notify me if I've been pawned. Why? Because then at least, like I said earlier, they will be notified every time there's a breach, which means they can take action and go and change the password. Another great site, which is, and so by the way, I'm going to share these links in a minute. Another brilliant way is this site here. They use an algorithm, because I don't know if you know this. This is the latest figures that I've been told, is that it now takes less than 1 hour to crack an 8-digit password or 8-character password. And if you think I'm joking, the way you crack passwords, go onto YouTube, download what we call a brute force attacker, a piece of software, install it on your PC or Mac, point it to what you want to crack, press the button and wait. So if you are right now using any passwords with 8 characters or less, please go and change them. Otherwise, you know what's going to happen next. Anyway, this website is brilliant, and I always show people this very clever trick. It's so simple. So people say if you weren't to use a password, but I still say you must, and you want to generate a password that's really easy to remember but almost impossible to crack, just look around the table. You know, it's where you're sitting, and let's say I'm sitting here and I can see a cup, and I can see a lock, and I can see a glass and a microphone. So watch this. If I type in here the word cup, that will be cracked instantly. If I put in the word lock, that will take 200 milliseconds to crack. If I put in the word glass, we go to 3 weeks. And now, of course, if I add microphone, now we're sitting at 83 quintillion years, just by adding those 4 words together. Now, those 4 words are easy to remember, but very hard to crack. So that's what I recommend. If you need to generate a password, use this tool to be able to generate one that's very easy to remember and to do. The other thing I was going to say to you as well, which is a great tip, is please, if you're using a WhatsApp account, go into settings, go to two-step verification, and please turn it on. We saw earlier how many people are being scammed through WhatsApp account. One of the first and quickest thing you can do is to set up multi-factor. It'll take you less than 30 seconds, and please do it tonight. That's a quick way. The other thing as well, which I'll share with you, is we have set up a 25 question, what we call a security health check, which I'll share the link in a minute, where if you take 2 minutes of your time, we will kick out a security score for your existing organization, or even if you're a single business, and you'll know which areas to concentrate on first to improve your cyber and data security. So that's me done. I hope, there was one last thing I was going to remind you of, and that's anybody using iPhones. Please go into your settings, go into passwords, and you will see the second line down on the screen. It will show security recommendations. Do that now, and you'll see how many of your current passwords are currently compromised and how many are for sale on the dark web. So you've got some work to do. Go and change your passwords and be secure. Thank you.
Thank you, Francis. As ever, some really, really handy top tips there that hopefully really easy for us to all just quickly put into practice in our own businesses, in our own, in our own mobile phones and all that sort of thing. So thank you very, very much. As I say, any questions, do pop them in the chat or hold on to them just until the end. We're going to head back over to Alex now, and she's just going to have a look at some of the latest statistics information with us. So I'll just pop that slide back up now for you, Alex.
Thank you.
Okay.
Cool. So I'm just going to quickly run over, first of all, some figures for beds alone. So as mentioned earlier, we have the action fraud report. So between 80 to 120 victims per week. Only 10% of those are less than £500 losses. The biggest loss that we've seen, which was only a few months ago, a lady, due to a romance fraud, lost £1.2 million. She somehow is absolutely fine, and she wasn't too bothered. We went round and did a house visit for her, and she understood that, the situation was silly and what she felt was silly, and that she shouldn't have really got involved, but caught her at a vulnerable time, and then that's what happened. So she lost over £1 million, and to most people, obviously, that would be awful. I don't have £1.2 million to lose, and I know that everything else would be on the line should that happen. Every week, between 3 to 5 victims lose over £70,000. A lot of them we find will be through investment or mandate frauds. Between March 21 and March 22, there was a total loss of £4,735,708. Over a year, it almost doesn't feel like it's a lot. However, that's only the reported crimes, and that's what's really important to remember as well, is that the numbers that I can kind of provide to you are only people that report, and a lot of people still don't report, and will try to kind of deal with it themselves. Next slide, please, Sam. So national facts and figures, 15% of all fraud reported to action fraud and serious fraud are featured with social media and or encrypted communication services. So that's again your WhatsApp scams. And as Dave mentioned, social media, a lot of that we get from Marketplace on Facebook. Investment tends to be started recently, what we see through Snapchat and through Instagram. And it's a really, really popular way that people get involved in the scams. A lot of hackers begin through social media. So that's why it's really important, as Francis kind of explained about your passwords, that you keep them strong, because once they're into your accounts, then, you know, so much can be done. So nationally received 18,811 computer software frauds with total loss of 22.1 million, which has gone up by 6% from last year. Increase in courier fraud, again, this had a real spike during COVID because a lot of people were home more, although they would have to go to banks, cash points and things like that. It was done over time, so people were getting all of their money out, storing it, and then they'd have someone come around to the house, maybe in a police uniform, maybe another uniform to seem trusted, and will take the money from people's homes. They would make out that their accounts are compromised and that the money's not safe in the bank. Romance fraud, always increasing, unfortunately. Increase of 35% reported. As I said, not everyone reports. £73.9 million loss over the last year. Finally, 27,773 reports with a loss of 183.9 million as a result of smishing and search engine abuse. So again, as Dave said about earlier, they're frequent. I get calls every day on my phone. I get emails straight into my inbox. Might be that Netflix need my credentials again, or my password needs changing, anything like that that includes a link. And then, as you mentioned as well about missing a parcel. So my mother-in-law, she received a text from DPD. You've missed your parcel. Click this link, pay us £5 or whatever it was, and we'll get it resent to you. She's gone ahead and done that, and then she's had compromises on her accounts because she's given so many details. So yeah, that's just a few facts and figures of the last year. And yeah, that's it for me. I'm not sure who's up next. Is it Paul?
It certainly is, Alex. Thank you. And some really, again, interesting facts and figures there that you shared with us. And like you say, you can only share with us the numbers that are reported. So really encouraging anyone that does experience any sorts of fraud to continue to report it. I'm going to hand over to Paul Lopez now from the Eastern Cyber Resilience Centre to talk a bit about what they do and how they can help protect and prevent.
Thank you, Sam, and thank you to the earlier speakers. I think before I start and introduce myself, I think the thing you mentioned, Francis, in relation to have I been pawned, or pwned, should I say? Careful how you pronounce that, and certainly careful how you type it into your search bar. So back in 2015, I personally was subject of a data breach, and my Amazon and my EE accounts are both hacked. And I was very lucky to avoid several £1,000s worth of debt as a result of orders that were made by the people who'd hacked my account. I found out in 2021 by using the Have I Been Pwned website that my password, which I'd reused across multiple sites like people did in 2014, had been leaked on the dark web. And had then been used by the criminals to do that. So I've experienced it firsthand. So absolutely right. That's one of the first things you do. Assess your own vulnerabilities. It's quite shocking, but you need to know what data is available out there about you before you start. So anyway, So yeah, my name is Paul Lopez. I'm Detective Superintendent from Essex, and I am the Managing Director of the Eastern Cyber Resilience Centre. Fiona Bale was meant to be here today, and sadly she's been called away to a national meeting. So I shall do the best that I can to cover her, because she's the technical one within the centre. I'm not particularly technical, more strategic is the way I look at it. So Sam, if you just move on to the next slide, please. So what do? So 3 key objectives within the centre. We raise awareness of ongoing cyber threats to small, medium-sized businesses, public bodies like schools, and also third sectors, charities. And we provide lots of free signposting and free services. And we also offer paid affordable cyber services to organisations across the region to help them mitigate that risk. And ultimately, we help, like others on the call, we help to protect and prepare organisations to become more cyber resilient. Okay, Sam, the next one, please. Thanks. So this is what we look like. You probably heard, okay, so I'm a police officer, which I am, and also the managing director of a company. Very, very unusual. It's unique in policing, actually. But basically, it's a small organisation. There's 3 full-time members of staff. We're all police officers, and we have a management board which supports us, made up of some of the bigger companies in our region. So, for example, Camelot, Co-op, and Whitbread, to name but a few, sit on our management board, and they meet quarterly to look at what we're doing, to assess how the company is progressing. So we're supported by business in lots of other ways as well. We have an advisory group, which Francis is a member of, and we're very, very grateful for the help and assistance that he provides to us as well. And we work with trusted partners who are fully commercial cybersecurity companies, and we provide services. The services that we do provide, which are paid, are provided through our student services, who are undergraduates across the regions, normally studying cybercrime or IT type degrees, and they are able to provide a range of what I'd call lower level introductory services. We don't compete with the commercial sector, but we kind of pitch ourselves at those businesses that can't afford the full commercial rate, but it opens up commercial services to those businesses that can't currently afford it. We are a membership focused organization. So whilst we have a website and you can get stuff from our website like many other organizations out there, we focus on our free core membership, and all businesses, all organizations within the region, including Bedfordshire, obviously, are welcome to join free of charge. Okay, Sam, next slide, please. Thank you. So we're part of a national network. You can see the eastern then. So we've got Kent, Suffolk, Norfolk, Beds, Cambs, and Hertfordshire are the 6 forces you'd expect us to be. We also have Kent as well. And we're one of the newer centres to have set up. We've only been running since May of last year. And there's a national centre which sits across the top of us as well, which provides legal services, some management consultancy, and also they run the student services on our behalf as well. Okay, thank you, Sam. So what do you get if you join the CRC? So first of all, free core membership is exactly what it says. It's absolutely free. We provide a monthly newsletter, which has a regular threat assessment. We try and make it regional, but you probably all know that cyber and fraud, these things are global in nature, and so it's quite hard to make it regional, but we try and make it sector specific as much as we possibly can do. We have webinars like this one today. We present, and we run our own ones, and we do regular blogs providing sector specific content, talking about the sorts of things that businesses and organizations should be doing to keep themselves resilient. We also provide signposting to the National Cybersecurity Centre's tools and services, and this one's quite important. The Little Steps program is it's again a free service. So if you are a member of the centre, you'll get a weekly email which will invite you to look at your cyber resilience piece by piece in quite small chunks, and it's all aimed at people who are not technical. So it's aimed at businesses who haven't got a technical background. And the idea is that by the end of that program, if you choose to, you'll be able to go to a certifying body to get Cyber Essentials. Cyber Essentials is a government-backed scheme which basically says to other businesses and your customers and your supply chain that you've passed this particular exam and this assessment, and that you basically do what you need to do to keep your data safe. It's not mandatory, but it is certainly going that way, and certainly a number of contracts now. If you want to get contracts with central government and some of the local government, they're looking for you to have that. I think it will become more and more expected that you have at least cyber essentials before you start contracting with other companies in the future. I mentioned about student services and our trusted partners that we work with. This is quite key as well. So Alex has obviously been speaking before me. We work with Alex, all the Protect officers across the region to run events. And when Alex talks to businesses, she will advise and recommend that they join our centre. And equally, we refer customers. We refer members back to the Protect network in certain circumstances if it seems the right thing to be doing. So for charities and what have you, we quite often refer them back to our Protect officers for them to do free staff awareness training. And we've got really good links with policing and government across the piece, both nationally and regionally. We get funding from the Home Office and funding from the 7 police chiefs in our region. We, again, like Alex does, we support police cyber alarm and the NSCC early warning systems, which are free systems which are available, which you can download and use to give you a heads up if there's any malicious activity on your network, on your websites. We support those free services as well. And we are just about to go live with an app. So if you go to the App Store, you'll be able to download it, and some of the content that we produce, most of the content we produce, including push notifications around cyber threats, could come out to you through that app. So that's almost about to go live now. And ultimately, as the slide says, if you're more cyber resilient, you've got less chance of becoming a victim of cybercrime. I think the important thing about cyber resilience and not cyber security is that we are, I think most professionals accept within this business now that it's very likely you will become a victim of a cyber attack at some point. So not only do you want to reduce the chance of becoming a victim, you want to improve your chances of recovering quickly and as cheaply as possible if that should happen. So we're very much around supporting incident response plans and that sort of thing. So you've got an idea of what you're going to do if you're actually attacked yourself. So that's what we do. I think there's a question slide now, Sam, and I think it'll be fair to say that the questions probably need to go to everybody on the call, because I think there are probably people on the call who are far better qualified than I am to answer them. But that's the end of my presentation about the CRC. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, Paul. That's excellent, and thank you for joining us today. So as I say, if anyone has any questions, do feel free to unmute if you want to. You don't have to use the chat at this point, and this is completely open for anyone to ask any questions if they have them. If you'd rather not come off mute and you want to put them in the chat, then that's absolutely fine as well. I actually had a question probably to everybody, as you say, Paul. What would be your top 2 recommendations to do first on leaving this webinar? What would be your sort of top 2 first things to do?
2-factor authentication would be my first suggestion. Anyone? Number 2.
Invest in an enterprise password manager, because that will do both for you and monitor the dark web and save you so much time.
I think mine would be to certainly look at your processes with regards to making payments out, especially to new suppliers, and make sure you've got a backup rather than just making the payment.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everybody there, and I think, Francis, you're right. I think, and Alex, I think, multi-factor authentication is absolutely key, along with password management. They're the things that I'd be recommending people to do.
And I can see Francis has put some of those really handy links in the chat already for everybody, which I'll take and I'll share with you. We've recorded the session, so you'll get the slides, and I'll take those links as well and put those in our follow-up email to you all, so that you have them to hand. But was there any more questions from anybody at this point?
Not a question from me, Sam, but just to say that with regards to ECRC, I, as long as everyone's happy, will send a follow-up with that in terms of the referral process, with the information that obviously Paul had talked about, and then if agreed with everyone that is on the call, when I email, then I can forward that referral onto them. But it's just to follow up on that, because I know there's a lot of information obviously that Paul had shared as well. So
thanks, Alex.
If anyone would not like their information to be shared, it's your email address basically that you registered for this webinar. So if anyone would like that not to be shared, then do either pop me an email privately. I'll put that in the chat now, or just pop a note in the chat to me. That's absolutely fine, just to let me know. But otherwise, I will assume that everyone's okay with us to do that. I'm just doing my email address now, and I can't type and talk. I think we have a question actually from Kevin. What's your recommended password manager?
The best one, we've evaluated about 12 or 13. And I mean, the ones we implement in all our clients is called Keeper, but the enterprise level of Keeper, but OnePass, LastPass, all of them are good, as long as you make sure it includes the dark web monitoring element, because without that, you're wasting your time. And then the part I want to add to that is, please, when you start using a password manager, remember, set up 3 layers: your username, your password, and set up your external multi-factor authentication code. So download something like Microsoft Authenticator, and if you can't do that, use text messaging. But I always prefer not to use text messaging because that's easy to hack anyway. So rather just use a multi-factor. I've got an Apple Watch, and I can now even authenticate getting into Keeper with my Apple Watch, which is great.
Fantastic. Any more for any more? No, I don't think so. Okay, well, thank you everybody ever so much for joining us this morning, and thank you to all of our speakers as well. I really do appreciate you giving your time to cover such an important topic. So thank you very much for that. As I say, we've recorded the webinar, so I will share the slide deck. I think all of our speakers are happy for me to do that. So I'll share the slide deck, the links and things that we've talked about. And if you do have any other questions, then I'm happy for you to come back to me directly if you want. You've got my email in the chat, and the follow-up email will come from me, and I'd be happy to obviously direct any of your queries to any of our speakers that we've had today.